Fußball lebt durch seine Fans. This special kit from Arminia Bielefeld translates to football lives through its fans. And not only has that statement been true for a long time, it carries a lot of weight nowadays with current events. One of the most endearing aspects of soccer is how accessible it is to everyone. Think about it, the only thing you need to play is some open space and a soccer ball, preferably inflated. It's also a reason that basketball is popular not just in the States, but worldwide. Really, all you need is a ball and something circular to shoot it through. Even if you just had the ball though, you'd probably be okay. American football, you really just need one of these, and it can be really any particular size, and just some open space. And for baseball, you just need this, and one of these, and some open space, and you can get started. Eventually you'll need a bat, but you can start with these. And as for hockey, well, I think there's a couple reasons why it is starting to fade a little bit in the American sports landscape. For one, ice rinks aren't just everywhere, and equipment is really expensive. These sticks cost bare minimum $100. Pads and jerseys and everything that goes into even playing hockey is very expensive, especially if you do not grow up underprivileged. I didn't, so I didn't actually get to play organized hockey growing up, and a lot of people are in that same boat. In fact, I had to play on the streets growing up. But accessibility to play the game isn't the only reason that soccer is growing in popularity in America. Accessibility by fans to the game is what makes soccer stand out nowadays. Like other MLS teams, our supporters groups have a direct line to the team itself, working with them on things like tifos, smoke machines, chants, marches, away day tickets, you name it. In turn, the team happily embraces supporter culture, with City SC even doing a series of features this offseason on the artists behind last season's tifos. Oh, and if you liked our tifos last season, get ready for more of them. The Louligans have a lot in store this year, that's all I can say. But this kind of fan access is something that is glaringly lacking in other sports leagues. For instance, there is no supporters culture in Major League Baseball. Cardinals fans call themselves the best fans in baseball, but like everyone else, we just show up to the ballpark, we cheer, and then we go about our lives. We don't make tifos, we don't march to Busch Stadium. What about the Blues? From my time in media, the Blues PR office is notably stingy on access to its players and doesn't like giving out media credentials unless you're quote-unquote legitimate, i.e. corporate media. And do we really need to get into how the NFL basically ignored our pleas during those town halls leading up to the league rigging the Rams' move to Los Angeles and the fulfillment of Stan Kroenke's wet dream? Some things are just better left to history. But soccer is the great exception to all of that. It's a sport where fans really do have a voice when it comes to the happenings involving their team, good or bad. Take, for instance, AFC Wimbledon. Yes, the same place where the famous tennis tournament is held. In a move that St. Louisans know all too well, Wimbledon was controversially allowed to move to Milton Keynes in 2003. That's about 60 miles north of their home at the time. This sparked outrage in the Wimbledon community to the point where fans formed their own club from scratch. That club is AFC Wimbledon, and in recent years they played in or near the same division as a team they lost, now known as the MK Dons. The club is now entirely fan-owned. Hell, you can be an owner just by sitting on your couch. It costs just £25 a year to have an ownership stake in AFC Wimbledon. We have a link in the description below if you want to do that. And of course, I know all this because I'm an owner. And they're far from the only fan-owned club in England. FC United of Manchester formed to protest the Glazers buying formerly fan-owned Manchester United in 2005. In Germany, though, it's a whole different story with fan ownership. It's actually a requirement. Clubs are subject to the 50+1 rule, requiring clubs to have at least a slight majority of fan ownership. Although RB Leipzig has gotten around this by having its own agents be a part of that 50+1. It's kind of why they're the most hated team in Germany. Having fans be part owners is one way that fans have a voice in the saying of their club that you just don't see in other sports in this country. Of course, our country's lust for capitalism won't allow that to happen, but that doesn't mean that fans can't have a stake in their teams. Far from it, in fact. If they can't own the club, they'll make their voices heard through action. One extreme example is what's happening right now in Reading, England. Dai Young is the club's owner. He is a Chinese businessman who had big dreams when he bought the club a few years ago, but has mismanaged Reading so badly it went from the brink of the Premier League right after he bought it to the verge of getting relegated to England's fourth tier and possibly even just folding altogether due to financial woes. He's not properly paying his players and has been hit with multiple fines and point deductions from the English Football League as a result. Now, other people have covered the Reading and Dai Young saga a lot better than I have. One of them is YouTuber Zealand, who recently did a very detailed and informative video on the subject. You can watch that video by clicking this button right here, or there is a link in the description below. But the best people that can tell you about Reading's story is the fans themselves. The fans in Reading are livid. Their club could be on the brink of destruction, and they are trying to do something about it. They're so mad that they rushed the pitch and caused the match to be abandoned. The fans have organized a group calling for Dai Young to sell the club before it dies. Get it? Rather aptly calling themselves Sell Before We Die. One of their members recently sat down with fellow St. Louis City SC fan Chall to talk about the situation.
There will still be visual protests in the stands. We're looking at banners and TIFO and all that kind of stuff. But we think the nuclear button has been pressed. It's no, we're not going to go. I'm not sure if I can say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. We're not going to go Nagasaki to Hiroshima, as it were. We've had our Hiroshima. We are going to be looking at taking the protest to Dai Young personally, but ultimately the longer term aim is to sort of corral the wider football community and to the problem of football ownership, of wider football ownership. It's not just a Reading problem. Our primary focus is Reading, of course, but we want to be able to take this campaign to a far wider remit and have the authorities recognise that football does have an ownership problem. It's not just Reading, and we need to get everybody on board with that and get the regulations changed.
It's a very detailed and captivating interview from the source itself. You can watch it through this link right up here or in the description below. In the end, though, Reading are teetering on the verge of joining a very dubious club in the UK, teams that have vanished. In recent years, Macclesfield Town, a team whose existence dated back to 1874, folded in late 2020 due to debts that COVID certainly didn't help with. A Phoenix club, simply known as Macclesfield Football Club, has emerged since then. Bury simply got yeeted altogether because it couldn't pay its liabilities. Bury AFC emerged after its supporters banded together. Similar stories have happened just since the year 2000 with Hereford United, Darlington, and Chester City. Now back to MLS, that big giant corporate golem we were talking about earlier. Now we talked at length on this channel, you can check it out right here for yourself, as well as countless other places about how MLS wants to pull its parent clubs out of the US Open Cup. But there have been individual team cases recently where MLS fans have spoken up, risen up, and made their voices heard and inspired actual change. I'm going to give you two very recent examples. The Colorado Rapids, or as some of you call them, the Crapids, have not been very good on the pitch for a while now. Last season in particular was dreadful, with the Rapids finishing dead last in the West and not even close to the next worst team. If Toronto weren't even worse in the Eastern Conference, Colorado would have been the worst team in the entire MLS last season. Its own club president, Patrick Smith, went in public in stating the team had lost its identity in the prior 18 months, and the team has become a bit of a meme for being low spenders. Oh, did I mention that the team is owned by Stan Kroenke and the Kroenke family? You would think that he forgot he even owned the Rapids until someone reminded him of that this offseason. More on that in a bit. All of this reached a crescendo in September 2023 when supporters group Centennial 38 walked out of a Colorado Rapids match. They just got up and left, and they left this message as an in-stadium statement. They then took to the media to extrapolate further. Quote, This is without question the worst year we have experienced as supporters in our Colorado Rapids history. While there have been too many seasons in the past that have been disappointing, 2023 has surpassed these in numerous ways. The shortcomings go far beyond results on the field and extend to the facilities and infrastructure of the organization. It is a culmination of years of underfunding and limited resources. Our club's frustrating mismanagement is coupled with substandard facilities. The stadium is outdated and negatively impacts the fans' game day experience, and the training facilities are subpar and negatively impact the player ability to do their jobs and to play for the fans and the badge. This indifference from ownership must stop. We can no longer be silent like our owner, and it is long past the time to say so. We await a response from KSC acknowledging our frustrations. The badge, the players, and the fans deserve better." End quote. Of course, it's kind of ironic that they call their owner Silent. After all, Silent Stan was a common nickname for Stan Kroenke in the years leading up to his departure to LA. But it does appear that the Rapids have taken that protest to heart, at least through some roster moves it's made this past offseason. One could argue that the Rapids might be the most improved team in the MLS heading into the 2024 season. In total, they have brought in Georgi Mihailovic, Zach Steffen. Those two, by the way, have U.S. men's national team experience. Jasper Lothelsend, Sam Vines, and Omir Fernandez. 5 pretty capable players. They even went splashy on their new head coach. Chris Armas comes to Colorado after being an assistant at Manchester United and Leeds United. Now, it's still going to be an uphill climb for the Rapids even after these roster moves. They just have a lot of ground to make up, but it should be at least enough to get them out of the cellar. And then there's Sporting Kansas City. These guys right here. And before I begin, as a St. Louis City SC fan, I am not going to be ragging on our rivals from Kansas in this segment here. It's not deserved at this point. What happened to them was an injustice, and we support Sporting KC fans in rallying against this injustice. Gavin Wilkinson was a GM and president of the Portland Timbers and Thorns and was fired in 2022 following separate investigations into the organization's handling of player or coach misconduct. Now, long story short, Wilkinson sided with a coach that sexually harassed his own female players and tried to hide the abuse from the media. There were also other allegations in the Sally Yates report about abuse allegations that Wilkinson had involvement in. Again, this is a subject that others have covered far better than I can. Feel free to do a quick Google search and research it. It's a long, winding trip. But despite all this disgustingness, Sporting KC decided that Wilkinson would be just a fabulous fit as the team's sporting director for some insane reason. Now, Sporting KC fans, led by supporter group Ladies of SKC, were outraged and made their voices heard in many ways. They put out statements condemning the hire right after it was announced and blasting the organization, calling the hire a disregard for the safety of women and accusing the team of crossing a line of ethics. They even criticized the main supporters group, the Cauldron, for calling for Q&As with Wilkinson, believing that those Q&As were not going to lead to anything. They were even prepared to protest at the team's annual off-season warehouse sale. But before that could happen, the team fired Wilkinson 8 days after he was hired. They released a statement that reads, in part, "In making this difficult decision, we want to first acknowledge the passion of our fans, our community of supporters, our partners, and our stakeholders. Together, they comprise our deeply valued sporting family. Our action today demonstrates our long-standing, unequivocal respect for their voices and the belief that we are all stronger when we listen to one another. The impassioned response from our fans reinforced to us a fundamental philosophy that has driven us since day one, to honor and protect our valued relationships." Now, of course, the team tried to give itself a pat on the back by claiming that they've always listened to their fan base when clearly by this hire, they only cared about their own hubris. But team corporate speak aside, these actions by Sporting KC supporters and Colorado Rapids supporters do show that fans have a loud voice when it comes to matters involving their clubs and can elicit change even in the stubborn MLS. Now, while these situations are sad and completely avoidable in the first place, the fact that this sport in general is so responsive to its fans is one reason why I have personally fallen in love with the sport in recent years. The NFL made it known loud and clear that my voice and the voices of St. Louis football fans did not matter in 2016 when the Rams went to LA. Now, yes, the NFL did pay a price for that, but they have salted the earth here in St. Louis, in my opinion, and it's going to be a long time before the NFL rears its head in this town again for various reasons. And I think the fact that soccer listens to its own fans is one reason why I think it will continue to gain a foothold in America, while hockey and baseball will kind of continue to fade. We as people want to know that our clubs are at least listening to us and taking our concerns into account. And we don't get that in other sports like we do in soccer, and I think people like me are starting to realize that. The soccer world is also kind of like a big community with collaboration and friendship with fellow fans unlike any other sport. Take, for instance, the Como signing of Nico Gioacchini from St. Louis City SC. When that signing was announced, the team reached out to St. Louis City SC fans to welcome them, to inform them about the club, to even share a link to watch their games for free this season, which I know a lot of St. Louis City fans are going to take a part in. And I personally spoke with a lot of Como fans that were very interested in Gioacchini, wanted to know more about him, and were very open about sharing their team and their community with us. And we were just as open right back about Gioacchini and our team as well. I've even struck a friendship with Chall, the guy that you saw earlier. He's a Doncaster Rovers fan, and he has also adopted St. Louis City SC as his club, and that connection has kind of struck a friendship with us as well. In fact, I'm going to see him in a couple months when Wrexham, of all teams, visits Doncaster. I'm actually going to be there in person for that. But it's a bond that could only have formed through soccer. Baseball, no. Hockey, no. American football, no. Soccer. And why do you think soccer is this big uniting force? Well, as the shirt says, football lives through its fans. By the way, I got this shirt from Arminia Bielefeld because it was St. Louis City SC defender Joachim Nilsson's last team before he came over to MLS. Just interesting, I thought. Now, do you think I'm being too hard on American sports, or do you think this is something you would like to see in American sports? What do you think about the situations in Kansas City, Colorado, and Reading, and are there any other examples that you can think of that I might have left out? There's always a story to tell, and I would like to hear your story as well. Leave a comment below and like and subscribe if you have enjoyed this content and want to see more. This has been your resident soccer zombie, Tom Franklin, and I'll see you next time.